Thank you for joining me today to talk about the business case for content strategy within your organization. This presentation is meant for leadership across all levels of government, and it will focus on strategic efforts agency leaders should be working towards as you think about your digital transformation efforts.
We wouldn't be here today if we didn't think that sort of this idea of business case for content strategy was important. So thank you for taking the time.
Before I get started, for anyone I haven't met before, let me introduce myself. My name is Kendra Skeene, and I work with the Georgia Gov Interactive team here at GTA as the Director of Product. Now, a title like that isn't common in state government, so let me tell you what I mean by that. As the Director of Product, I manage the roadmap for our enterprise web software. That means I'm keeping the pulse on that whole system. I'm planning maintenance and enhancements, overseeing the training and support efforts, and so on. More importantly, it means making sure the content management system we provide meets the needs of our agency partners and their customers and their constituents.
All we're doing then at the end of the day is picking containers that you guys put your information into, right? So what we do is build a tool for everyone to use. Our tool is not the end game. Your information, your content is the end game.
I've been working with this software and with all the agencies who use it for many years in many different roles. So I've had the opportunity to get a pretty good view of agency needs, challenges, and priorities. Speaking of priorities, what I've seen is that for most of you, your web content, that's not a top priority. But as you talk through your goals, you talk about your mission, you look at your priority lists, what I see is some of the reoccurring themes are these. So you're looking to provide services for residents or services for other agencies. A lot of you are looking to improve your public reputation around your agency or just around government in general, and you're looking to improve the public sentiment about your commissioner or other leadership. You're also looking to reduce your budget, right? So reducing call volumes and find ways to save money so you can do more with what little you're given. Each of these is more strongly tied to your web presence than you may realize, and that's all based on whether or not the information online is presented in a way that your audience can find it and understand it. When you don't prioritize quality and accuracy in the information you put online, you're sending a message that you don't prioritize the very people you're supposed to serve. Now, if you discovered that you had gaps in your security, I know you would drop everything to fix it before it made the 6 o'clock news. But your digital presence, that is the information you push out to the world across your website, your services, your call centers, and social media, those can make or break you too. It's the difference between serving your audience with the right services and information the first time or sending them mixed signals and confusing answers because your channels aren't managed. It may not get the attention that a security breach does, but that doesn't make it less important. A poorly managed information system is more of a slow, silent killer of your image. So to take control of your agency's image, you need to have a consistent message. To have a consistent message, you need to meet your audience where they are. You have to take control of your web content. If the information on your website is poorly organized, poorly written, or out of date, your organization will still experience high call volumes, visits to your office, or even worse, misinformed constituents. It seems so simple, right? It seems so tiny that it's not even worth thinking about, and yet the ramifications of ignoring it or deprioritizing it are huge. If your channels each have different versions of the same information, right? If the call center, your website, and your social media managers are all reading from different scripts and providing conflicting information to constituents, you're reflecting the disorganized interior of your agency out to the public. Now, I'm going to refer to your website a lot today because today that's still the main location where you can organize and present your key information. But over time, that digital ecosystem will only grow, and we'll be focusing on ways to store the information in one place well, so you can distribute it across multiple channels in your ecosystem. Nikhil talks about this in his talk about digital ecosystems, and if you haven't looked at that, definitely check it out after this. But honestly, if you're not getting a handle on the state of your web content now, it's going to be much harder to mature into a full ecosystem over time.
So how do we take control of that information?
Today I'm going to focus on the more concrete steps toward building a mature ecosystem of information, how to prioritize your content strategy, and what we're doing at Georgia Gov Interactive to actively help you towards that goal. From where I sit, the steps towards this part of your digital transformation are these. So again, this isn't how to manage content, right? This is how to set that direction within your agency. So that first step is to add content management to your strategic vision. Ensure you have the right people on the job. educate them on what's needed, and empower them to do their jobs well. The Department of Revenue started prioritizing their content using this approach about 6 months ago. So as we go, I'll also tell you how that's been working out for them so far. First, I want to take a moment then to paint that picture of where DOR was before making this strategic shift. So way back, about 2.5 years ago, the agency moved away from its old legacy system of web information websites onto our Georgia Gov platform. Now they needed to move quickly, they had a very tight timeline, so we worked with them to move all their content over basically as is from the old website. The IT department was the business owner, so they had to make all the content changes before the move to our CMS. Before, they had to control all of it, right? It was all HTML pages, or otherwise it wasn't in a content management system at all. But once we moved them over to our system, we were able to train about 60 content managers from across the agency. So this way, each department could maintain their own content. By migrating to the platform, they quickly benefited from modern technology, such as a modern design, mobile-friendly layouts, and advanced search capabilities, and the ability to let non-technical people own their content. But because they didn't update any of the content in the process of moving it, we're still serving constituents that same outdated information that they had before on the old site.
DOR did hire a content manager, but not until after the migration was done. So we moved everything over, we started moving in it, and they said, hey, we need a person probably to oversee all of this. So they hired a content manager, but they put her within the IT department. So she was for technical support, first tier for the website, for those 60 people.
So with each siloed group taking care of their own content and no one group really talking at all to another one, the website became a bit of a free-for-all as far as the content went. And with that before story of the DOR structure, let's jump into the steps that they took and that your agency can take to take control of information. Okay, so we've covered this, right? We know that the information on our websites is key to informing our audience and meeting our goals. That information needs to be accurate, it needs to be written in a way that people can understand it, and it needs to be easy to find. If you want to reduce support center call volume or improve your agency's image with your audience, you need to put key constituent services front and center online and remove the focus on internal structures. There needs to be a priority placed on removing outdated information and making sure current information is written in a way that's easy to understand. None of this will happen on its own. The strategic vision to make web content a priority needs to come from the top. I will tell you if there's one thing I've learned from years of talking to content managers, it's that unless they have support and direction from their C-suite, they are hamstrung in their efforts to do their jobs well.
To really clean it up, you've got to make it a stated priority, and it needs to be carved out as a stated priority. At the Department of Revenue, the catalyst to making these changes was that their commissioner couldn't find information on the website. So it wasn't a problem until the commissioner realized it was a problem for them, right? And then it became real. And they were able to jump on that and say, like, hey, maybe if you can't find information, neither can our constituents. Maybe we should do something about that. So that's when they decided they needed to rethink it and do something different.
The next step then is making sure you've tasked the right people with seeing this vision through. We know the information on our websites is key to informing our audience and meeting our goals. But in your agency, who is in charge of maintaining that information? In other words, who's responsible for your image? Ultimately, wherever your website lies in your hierarchy of priorities and organizational structure is going to determine whether or not you meet those goals. Now, in many agencies, I see that the IT department owns that vision, well, owns that responsibility, right? And some administrative assistants. Sometimes you have short-term contractors, or it's decentralized, where some people within each department update their own content whenever it occurs to them to do it. Each of these structures has its own challenges. Often you've got an overworked administrative assistant trying to update web pages based on other employees' emailed instructions, and that's in addition to all their other duties. They have no time to review or think through strategy, and they're probably not interested in it anyways. In other agencies, it's the IT department who are more focused on technology, who are also tasked with taking orders within the agency to update content. Again, they do this without a focus on strategy and long-term maintenance. Even worse is if you have a decentralized strategy where each department is responsible for maintaining their content in addition to their regular jobs, where there's no central content manager reviewing and approving content. Now, while each of these groups absolutely may be able to add value and insight to your website, very rarely are they able to focus on providing the real value your site needs. So they shouldn't strategically own that task. If no one is maintaining a central content strategy based on data, and if no one has authority to make real decisions on how to improve your content strategy, that agency's image, then your image will be disorganized, confusing, and misinformed. That's how you end up with a camel when your audience is looking for a horse. So this is key, right? Tasking someone to update your website because they're underallocated or because they're good with computers probably will not get you the strategy and care that you're looking for. You are more likely to find the necessary skills within the communications department or somewhere similar. Wherever you're setting that central messaging, that's where your website lives. That's part of your central messaging. This is also where you want to centralize content ownership and maintenance, right? That's within the team that knows how to set your tone. Now, the Department of Revenue had someone in their IT department who was skilled at content strategy, but as I mentioned earlier, she was labeled as a website support contractor. In her position, she couldn't make the changes needed simply because of her placement and the perception of someone from IT making suggestions to other departments. So what they did is they moved the person with the skills they needed into a position where she could be more effective. At DOR, this fell under the Office of the Commissioner, reporting directly to the Deputy Commissioner. This structure change, it signified the strategic direction, right? It signified its importance and the alignment with the direction of the agency. Now, even within your communications department, you may find that you don't have anyone right now who has enough time to focus on cleaning and pruning your content, or this just isn't their area of expertise, right? That's okay too. We can't all be experts at everything.
If you don't have someone you can trust with your image, right, you need to hire somebody.
You're looking for somebody who can focus on content strategy, who can whip your web presence into shape and then keep it in shape with regular content audits and an editorial calendar. Now, whether this means hiring new blood or reallocating existing talent, that depends on what you have and how much you can redirect existing resources. But I would say don't rule out either option until you've surveyed your landscape and thought it through. Now, especially if you're going to be reallocating existing resources, your next step is crucial. You have to make sure they're trained in content strategy. Again, not in PR and communications and not in HTML and CSS and code, but content strategy. That's a different skill set. You need someone who can think about the big picture of the life of your information and base that strategy on data. This skill set isn't common within state government, so this will probably require some training. A big reason for this is that the old model of building individual web pages and ranking success by page views, that's becoming outdated.
Not every search result provides feature-rich answers. If we craft content that people can use really easily, it is going to do Google pull-outs and start giving information based on this pull-out. So again, that somebody needs to know what they can write and how they can mark things up to make sure that Google has that information.
So Facebook, Twitter, call centers, chatbots, conversational interfaces that grab the information and skip a screen altogether, none of these need a page. They need chunks of well-labeled information. And particularly in government, you got to remember our goal is to get constituents the services they need so they can be on their way. We're not trying to sell advertising space on a web page where time on site or page views equals dollars. As long as we're getting the right information out there quickly and efficiently and we keep it current, we'll have succeeded. That doesn't always equal page views at all. Looking ahead, we want to be able to build towards having a single source of truth for each type of information you have and that all of your channels can pull from. Curated, labeled, well-written, well-managed. So no matter where you or your audience goes, they get the right information the first time. Their experience with your agency becomes seamless, and by extension, their experience with Georgia government is positive. But again, we have to start by tuning and crafting what we have for our audiences. Doing all this requires skills in content strategy. So don't throw your team in blindly. Be sure they're armed with an understanding of best practices and how to do that work. They should be able to review your analytics and make decisions based on that data. And you should be able to trust them to make the right decisions based on that data. They should understand how word choices and tone impact user behavior, and how to tune metadata and structured content to extend the life and reach of your key information, to future-proof it. This is a lot. Not everyone is skilled at all of these at once. Some people have skill sets that are more honed to just a couple of them, but they do that really well. Others will be able to learn all of these skills, but maybe only understand half of them starting out. And that's where training comes in. There's many great books, websites, and online training classes focused on the elements of content strategy, but it can still be hard to know where to start. And that's where we can help with some tangible hands-on training. Our team has developed a free certification series of classes to train up your resources on the skills they need to be strategic thinkers when it comes to that holistic content strategy. Like I mentioned earlier, the tools we offered are just containers for your information. If we could help build up all of our partners, we can do more to extend those services. So across this course series, the goal is to help content managers understand the big picture of web content and how all those pieces come together. They look at data and they talk to departments to understand and craft personas of the groups they serve. They learn how to map a customer's journey through your different touch points. They practice rewriting content so that it's easier to understand on the web. They dig into their analytics data to see where people are and what they're looking for. They make their content accessible for all audiences and perform content audits and cleanups. We had our first class graduate this spring, and we've already seen how that training has helped these content managers think more strategically about the information they're putting online. Our next session's already booked, and we've got a wait list going, but we do plan to offer these sessions more often, at least quarterly, in the coming months to be able to serve more agencies. These trainings are a first step, so content strategy still takes time to master, which is why we offer continuing content strategy support and consultation services to our agencies as well. We also blog regularly about content strategy topics as a way to keep the concepts fresh in the minds of our agency partners. All right, so you've hired or you've trained people that you trust to lead your agency's content strategy efforts. Now you have to empower them to do their job well. These people you assign to clean up and prioritize your web content will need to devote a significant amount of time to the task at the outset when that heavy lifting is being done. Even once the first round of cleanup is complete, those resources will need dedicated time regularly for maintenance and content validation. This is where direction from the top is critical. The only way your resources can prioritize content is if their managers make the space for them within their schedules. The Department of Revenue empowered their content strategist by placing her in a division that reports directly to the Deputy Commissioner. Along with setting that priority, they provided her with the analytics, the testing tools, and the call center data she needs to make smart, data-driven decisions. Content strategy is also her primary job, not a secondary or an afterthought, so she can focus on tuning pages based on the data and follow those results. And to be clear, part of empowering them to do their job well is empowering them to make content decisions. There may also be internal power struggles around the placement of information on your website, and this is where your content team needs to be able to make that final call on how the information is best presented based on data, based on usability testing within the industry, and based on their training. Otherwise, you're right back where you started with competing agendas playing out on your homepage, right? You're right back to that camel when you need a horse. Now at the Department of Revenue, the content strategist works with all the other divisions to help them with their content. When she finds one department that's more cooperative than another, she can test ideas with that one group and use the successes there to help nudge other divisions in the right direction. Ultimately, if every content decision still has to be run by a committee that's thinking politically instead of being data and user focused, your information ecosystem isn't going to mature. Not only that, but if your content strategists aren't empowered to make content strategy decisions, they won't keep trying for long, right? They'll either just give up and keep collecting a paycheck, or they'll leave and find somewhere that's going to trust them and empower them. So to do this well, you need a content strategist that you trust to make decisions about your image, and you have to be able to trust them to even tell leadership when a content suggestion is a bad idea. They need to be able to tell you no if their training and their understanding of the data points them in a different direction than what you're asking for. You need to be able to handle that when that happens. So the Department of Revenue has been moving in this direction for 6 months. So how is that working out for them? I'll tell you, I love using DOR as a case study simply because they're relying on numbers to show their results. It's not guesswork. It's not hoping that something might work without being able to test it.
So they have multiple call centers. So they went into this with that goal of decreasing the number of calls to call centers. These calls, take a lot of time. They cost the Department of Revenue a lot of money. They also cost constituents a lot of time sitting on hold and then trying to get through the whole thing. So they know that if they can decrease call centers, they're saving real dollars.
The assumption is that many people will start by looking for something online, right? People would rather not call and wait on hold if they can get their question answered on the website. So if they can clean up some content, rewrite some answers, and reduce call volume, that's a huge win and a huge cost savings. As we dig into the Google Analytics to compare traffic from this year to the same period the previous year, we see that overall, DOR saw an increase in page views of over 500,000 more views this last 6 months than they did the year prior. While some divisions saw a decrease in total page views, the motor vehicles department, where DOR has been working the most on their content strategy, they saw an 8% increase for their landing page. But even when we're talking about 500,000 more page views, when you have millions of visits a month, that doesn't look like much on a graph. And analytics alone aren't always telling, right? It's hard to know what would account for that growth, that bit of growth over the year. It could just be that the population has grown. It's also hard to know what more visits means for information and service-driven government websites. What if there's more page views because the information isn't clear and people are going to more pages searching for it? Do we even know if they found what they needed after all these page views? So page views don't necessarily translate to success. Again, we're not selling advertising space, so page views isn't always going to be our best metric. That's where we go back to the question, what's your goal? What are we trying to achieve by tuning our information?
The goal is to decrease call volume. So that's where we start looking. We stop worrying about page views and we look to see, did we answer people's questions? How many people are calling in?
So far, the motor vehicles call center has seen results. Overall, the call center has seen a gradual decline in call volume since DOR started rewriting and fine-tuning content within the motor vehicles division. They went from an average of over 2,500 calls a week in October to closer to 2,000 calls a week in February. So that's not nothing. That dip is more pronounced when you see how many fewer calls they're getting about general topics, right? Those are the questions that we can really assume are easily answered with a well-written web page, or by strategically pointing customers who get a letter in the mail over to the website for more details. They're getting about half as many general inquiry calls as they were before the content strategy push. So that's some real results. And another more targeted example, DOR added a new page to tell people what they need to do to change their address on their car title. And the calls about that topic dropped to next to nothing because now they can get that question answered online. So they're researching what people are searching for and calling about, and they're tuning their website in response. They're seeing a drop in calls, and it's clear they're eliminating confusion with taxpayers.
The thing we haven't tested, but we can hypothesize, right, is that if the information's available online, they're also reducing a stressor for these taxpayers. And by extension, they're slowly improving the agency's image in the process. When you're talking about an agency that nobody's going to like because it's revenue. But if they're able to get those painful things done less painfully, people still can feel better about it.
Over time, I only expect their successes to grow in this area. We're also excited to see how we can partner with DOR in other ways to improve their overall results over time, knowing that they have mature content support that they need to get it done. I suspect they'll be one of the first ready to join our conversational interface pilot, for one thing. So who's next? Enough talk, right? Actions speak louder than words. It's time to make web content part of your agency's vision and strategy as well, not just an afterthought. Again, how do we do this? You need to make content strategy part of your strategic vision. Make sure you've got the right people on the job. Educate them on how to do this and empower them to do it well.
I have tons of time for questions if there are any.
Did you do any audit on the changes?
Audits on the changes?
Yeah.
We have not, but the Department of Revenue has been doing a lot of that. Do you mean, do we provide that service for other agencies?
Yes.
We can. Yeah, we definitely talk about
Thank you for giving me your time, and I do hope if you haven't looked at Nikhil's talk about your digital ecosystem that you would look at that as well. Thank you.